In the 1970s, Edward Billy Meier built an international movement based on a spectacular claim. He was the chosen terrestrial emissary for an advanced alien civilization. His organization, FIGU, attracted thousands of devoted followers globally. The entire operation was based here, in a secluded rural valley in Switzerland. From this isolated farm, Meier produced thousands of pages of telepathically dictated contact reports and a massive archive of physical evidence. Over the next few decades, independent scientists, photographic experts, and professional skeptics methodically dismantled every piece of that evidence. Yet, as the proof of fraud piled up, his core followers did not leave. They actually became more fiercely loyal. It raises an uncomfortable question. How does a rigid belief system endure when its foundational texts are proven forgeries, and its physical proof is demonstrably fake? The survival of FIGU has very little to do with extraterrestrials. Instead, it offers a stark look at the extreme psychological lengths a person will go to avoid admitting they have been conned. High-control systems demand an investment that far exceeds simple finances. Adherents commit decades of time, sever deep family ties, and anchor their entire identity to the group. When that person is suddenly confronted with undeniable factual evidence that their leader is a fraud, it triggers intense existential dread. Acknowledging the truth means accepting that their life's work and community are built on a lie. To protect against that collapse, the brain instinctively builds a psychological firewall. With this barrier in place, the individual enters deep cognitive dissonance. To maintain the shell, the mind accepts any excuse to keep the illusion alive, no matter how illogical. This defensive mechanism explains why Meier's followers continued to accept his physical evidence, even as the hoaxes became increasingly, painfully absurd. Take Meier's most famous piece of evidence, the wedding cake beamship. He presented high-resolution photographs of an ornate, tiered metallic spacecraft resting in a Swiss field. Skeptical investigators took a close look at the undercarriage. The base of the spacecraft perfectly matched the exact dimensions and corrugation of a commercially available garbage can lid. The decorative spheres on top were identified as uncapped Christmas tree ornaments. Confronted with this exact match, Meier did not confess. Instead, he claimed the aliens had telepathically beamed the advanced blueprints of the ship to Earth to foster our technological development. According to Meier, those blueprints were intercepted by earthly manufacturers who mistakenly used them to design garbage can lids. His claims eventually moved beyond the atmosphere. To prove he traveled the galaxy, Meier presented deep space astronomical photographs taken from inside an alien craft. Those photographs were quickly traced to the NASA Apollo-Soyuz mission archives. He had taken public images of human astronauts working in their cabin and slightly cropped the edges to obscure the earthly equipment and uniforms. He also shared these detailed images of the planet Venus, supposedly captured during his interstellar journeys. These swirling cloud patterns perfectly match the public domain images captured by NASA's Mariner 10 probe in 1974. Each time researchers presented definitive proof of earthly fraud, the organization did not collapse. The undeniable facts simply forced his followers to construct wilder, more complex conspiracies to protect their investment. The rationalizations reached their peak with Meier's biological evidence. He shared photographs of two beautiful extraterrestrial women he called Asket and Nera. Independent researchers identified both women. They were not highly evolved aliens from the Dahl universe. They were Michelle Delafave and Susan Lund, two American singers and dancers. Meier had simply pointed his camera at a television screen while the women were performing on the Dean Martin show. Caught photographing a 1970s variety show, Meier claimed he was suffering from temporary amnesia at the time. He stated that the men in black had maliciously broken into his archives, stolen his authentic alien photos, and replaced them with pictures of the dancers to discredit his mission. For a dedicated follower, believing in an elaborate, untestable intelligence agency plot is psychologically far easier than accepting that their prophet watches terrestrial television. Cognitive dissonance successfully weaponizes their paranoia against their own common sense. There were other blatant fabrications, like a blurry photograph of a living pterodactyl taken during a supposed time travel trip, which was easily traced to a painting in a children's dinosaur book. But the fatal blow came from inside his own home. In 1997, Meier's ex-wife, Calliope, defected from the group and publicly confessed to the fraud. She explicitly detailed how she helped her husband construct the spaceships out of household trash, carpet tacks, and string, actively participating in the staging of the photos out in their garage. Faced with an explicit confession from an accomplice, the cult deployed its ultimate self-sealing defense mechanism, the psychocultural hypothesis. The group's apologists began arguing that the aliens intentionally provide evidence that looks flawed or earthly. The logic is that humanity isn't ready for absolute proof, so the Plejarian make the ships look like garbage can lids, so that only the spiritually enlightened will see past the imperfections. Under this framework, doubting the evidence becomes a spiritual failing. Absolute gullibility is reframed as a badge of honor. Once a believer accepts that deception is a divine test, the psychological trap locks permanently. For the individuals who do manage to break through that conditioning and leave a high-control environment, the psychological toll is immense. Psychologists call this state shattered assumptions. It is realizing that your time, your finances, and the friends you recruited were all dedicated to a fabricated reality built out of string and discarded plastic. The absolute certainty that once governed your entire life collapses. Your primary interpretive framework, your operating system, is uninstalled overnight. The discovery of a hoax marks the beginning of a grueling recovery, where the actual work of deconstruction takes place in the ruins of a shattered worldview. There is a cruel societal stigma surrounding cult survivors. The assumption that they must be gullible, weak, or unintelligent to have believed such claims. In reality, most people enter these groups because they are searching for meaning, cosmic order, and a sense of belonging. Those are entirely valid, healthy human needs that were systematically exploited by a charismatic authority figure. Walking away the moment the deception is recognized requires a specific type of courage, representing a level of maturity that outweighs the initial mistake of being fooled. To find true, lasting freedom, you finally have to leave behind the intense, lingering shame of being conned. The ultimate victory over any high-control group is radical self-forgiveness. Healing begins the moment you stop blaming yourself and forgive the person you were when you were just trying to survive.